Hello, everyone. I'm Colin, Tessier of WrestleZone.com. I'm joined by John Clark tonight to talk about WWE NXT 2.0. John, how you doing tonight?
Pretty good. How about you?
Doing pretty well. Doing pretty well. Not a bad show for NXT 2.0 tonight, so can't complain about that. Yeah, I mean the brand is making progress. There was a time not so long ago when we were both pretty regularly down on the show itself, and we've gotten some pretty solid shows lately. So can't be too upset about that. And this week especially was a pretty special show because it was a Championship Tuesday edition, 3 title matches. Two of them announced ahead of time. One of them came about due to a pretty unfortunate situation that we'll get into. So we might as well start with that because we didn't get a chance to talk about it last week, but I think it was Wednesday. Nash Carter of MSK at the time, one half of the NXT Tag Team Champions, was released amid allegations of abuse and also the resurfacing of a very controversial picture. So he was reportedly released on Wednesday. I think it was Friday. WWE announced that the titles had been relinquished for no reason given. And then over the weekend, they announced that there would be a 5-team gauntlet match. That means it was all in a pretty short span. I think the 2 separate announcements, and then they announced the 5-team gauntlet match to determine the new champions. That was for tonight's show. So 3 title matches for tonight's show. And I mean, I guess in a way that it's a good thing that Pretty Deadly arrived last week, and that set up what we saw tonight, because otherwise I felt like they didn't really have 5 quality teams. I mean, Imperium got disbanded essentially with the call up of Gunther and Ludwig Kaiser, not as he's now known, and otherwise, not a whole lot of depth there in terms of actual, legitimate teams. But that's at the stage for this tag match tonight. So I guess I'll stop there. Just kind of ask your thoughts about the Nash Carter thing in terms of, at the very least, about how they handled vacating the titles and doing the gauntlet match here.
Yeah, it's a sore subject for obviously numerous reasons. We've seen this before, where every now and then, sometimes they do due diligence, sometimes they kind of act before that. I think this might have been one of those instances where uh, cancel culture struck again, and they kind of just felt a need to do this. I mean, we don't know what they know. We just can assume or think about what information they might have. Otherwise, as far as the move itself goes, I mean, Grizzled Young Veterans should have had a spot in this, I thought, but they didn't. I thought they would have been a good choice to win. I mean, they would have been who I would have picked. But the whole situation as it goes, it happens. We've seen it before. Same thing happened with Velveteen Dream when he was gone. So there's not really a whole lot you can do.
Yeah, I don't want to talk too much about the situation itself. For all we know, WWE may have done their own investigation or looked into the matter. We can't really comment about that itself. A very just ugly situation all around. Whatever there is to it, just not a good situation to have. Period. And especially NSK just won the titles. This is more from the creative standpoint. Just won the titles. That was Saturday, and then you got released on Wednesday. Definitely unfortunate there, and especially the timing. Imperium getting called up essentially, or mostly called up. Not ideal on any count. And then the gauntlet match, always fun in terms of a way to kind of feature people, tell a story. And yet again, I think WWE did it well tonight. I mean, they had the Creed brothers start off as the first team. Then we had Legado del Fantasma. Now, heading into the match, I was pretty excited for Legado. I thought they would have been maybe one of the more compelling choices to win, or one of the teams I was kind of rooting for at the very least. The Creed brothers, though, also made sense. They won the Dusty Cup. They've been in contention for the title, so I felt like that would have been a very good option. They were the first team to start, and a lot of the time for the team that starts, you tell that story. They run the gauntlet literally, and they get to the end. We've seen with Kofi Kingston, other people over the years. Then they make it through and win, and it's a great story. And we got most of the way there. The Creed brothers eliminated Legado. Good mini match there. Then Josh Briggs and Brooks Jensen, who I was actually very impressed with. I've made it no secret I'm not a big fan of their country guy gimmick, but I thought they looked really good in the ring here. That they really brought it against the Creed brothers. I think it was Brutus, or yeah, I think Brutus got slammed through the announce table, which was kind of exciting. Like, they were going all out even early on here, and that was only the second, I guess technically third team to enter the match there. Then they were eliminated after a fairly solid match. Grayson Waller wearing a sling, and Sanga came out. Now, obviously, back at Stand Deliver, Grayson Waller took a tumble off the ladder. There was some concern that he was hurt. He was wearing a sling last week, and then they got booked in this match. And I thought, well, if he's hurt, like how are they going to do that? It was a ploy. He ripped the cast off, so he's clearly okay. Then he was using his arm, so he seems okay, which is good there because like that would have been a pretty big loss for NXT. Pretty good match there. I mean, I think this is a good showing for Sanga as powerhouse. Good showing for Grayson because the heel move of ripping the cast off. Creeds got through them. The final team, the newly debuted on NXT Prime, Pretty Deadly, who debuted last week by attacking the Creed Brothers. Nice little story there. Good match here. Obviously, the story being the Creed Brothers made it so far, all the way to the end, and then couldn't quite pull off the one last elimination here. Pretty Deadly won the titles here. So, bunch of comments already here. We got Brian saying the Creeds should have won. Eddie saying the Creeds will win soon. They need an underdog storyline here. Pretty Deadly is a good opponent for them. They can kind of roll with the story we've already got going. DJ saying Pretty Deadly is pretty deadly. They deserve the gold. The British are coming. I like that. Yeah, I thought this was a good match. I was a little, I don't want to say deflated. I was not in favor necessarily of having Pretty Deadly when they literally debuted on NXT 2.0 last week. And if you watch NXT UK, you're familiar with them. They were, I looked it up to double check. They were former NXT UK champions or tag team champions over in NXT UK. Had a good run with that. They've had a good run there. But if you're not watching that show, like myself, admittedly, you really don't know who these people are. And then they debuted last week as the Mass Attackers. So like that's something. But then to go turn around and have to win their second week out essentially on the main show is at least a little questionable. At least I would say that kind of the majority of your audience. Shout out to the finisher being named Spilt Milk though. But I don't know. I saw a bunch of people not necessarily being in favor. We already got some comments here about the Creeds maybe deserving that win or being the rightful winner there. But John, what do you think? What do you think about the Pretty Deadly winning the titles here?
I thought the finish was a bit predictable with Pretty Deadly because I don't think you're going to have them lose right off the bat. I don't necessarily think the predictability was a bad thing. Not that it was super predictable, just that it doesn't make sense for them to lose that quickly. So that in a sense of that, it's like, well, we know it's going to happen. NXT was forced to make like this sudden decision. They had to. And then that's the decision they went to. I mean, the match was absolutely terrific. Let's not talk down on the match, or despite the outcome itself, because you had, Waller revealing the fake elbow injury. You got the Briggs and Jensen, which I still think is the great value. Trevor Murdoch and Lance Cade. You have the Fallon Henley showdown with Elektra Lopez at the top there. You have the 450 splash. You have the crossbodies. Just everything came together pretty well here. The one gripe that I did kind of have from tonight is why bother showing like the backstage segments of them drawing their number if you're not going to actually tell us what it was? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like Creed Brothers, like, oh, we're happy with this one, which obviously you would assume it was one or two because they said they wanted to dominate everybody, but still, like, you're gonna have all the teams do that, then you should be like telling us, like when they do this with the Royal Rumble, they used to anyway. Like R-Truth be like, oh, I got number 12 or whatever, and they'd show you, like you would know. And today it was like they were doing the segments, but for what if they're not gonna like tell you? I mean, it was just filler. I mean,
Yeah.
why else would you do it?
I do like, and they do this for a lot of the big title matches, and especially this one, a 5-team gauntlet match. They had each team with like a mini promo or interview, just kind of say their piece, get hyped up a little bit. I like that. It adds a little magnitude to the match. I gave them some credit for doing the whatever you want to call it, the drawing segments of like which team would enter when. I guess I overlooked the logical loophole or I guess the oversight of not getting to see what the number was. I like there was some effort of like, hey, they were drawing a number. It's a little different. Brian said the gauntlet match was fun, but again, Creed should have won. But again, I will say that there's some truth in the idea that Pretty Deadly probably would have been harmed by a loss right away. But at the same time, there's something that says like to win so like right away as well. It's a bit of a toss up. But again, I don't know if there was necessarily a perfect way to go about this. They wound up in a pretty unfortunate situation with MSK breaking up essentially by necessity and giving the titles up. And again, I felt like the Creed Brothers would have made the most sense in a lot of ways. but there is something said again about Pretty Deadly not losing their first night on NXT Prime in their first match. So we'll see. It does feel like we're going to get this feud moving forward. The Creed Brothers definitely have a rightful excuse for a rematch, and I feel like we're going to keep rolling with that. I'm down with that. I'm hopeful we get to see more of who Pretty Deadly is, because again, I don't really know much about them at this point. So hopefully we get to see them a little more from a character standpoint, from an in-ring standpoint. They had in their promo tonight, they said they're the tastiest, the most extravagant and flamboyant team there is. So a very kind of flashy team. Someone earlier had said they're kind of a ripoff of the Fashion Police, Fandango and Tyler Breeze back in the day. But again, I'm curious about what they really look like, in terms of how they get booked over here on NXT Prime. Looking forward to it. Talking about the tag team division, another addition in this case to the division. John, you tweeted about it, so I feel like it's a good time to bring it up. Perhaps unexpectedly, it was right when the gauntlet match was starting. Index and Dusha, NXT's favorite power couples here, are backstage kind of watching the match. Indy was saying, oh, if the match went a little longer last week, Dexter would have won. That was when Dexter faced Duke. And they obviously they'd feud for a while there, and they're arguing, and then basically they reached the consensus that like if we have Dexter and Duke join forces, they would win this gauntlet match, they can win the gold. And then Indy was like, hey, you should do that. And at first Duke was like, no way, I'm not going to do it. And Dexter just like shook his head. And then eventually Indy was like, please, come on, you could win all the gold. And then Dexter gave his classic thumbs up. So we are getting, at least to some extent, a tag team of Duke Hudson and Dexter Lumis. And now, John, you had tweeted that you didn't think I'd be necessarily thrilled about it, because now we have to kind of watch them try to coexist. Not a fan of that inherently, but at the very least, I am excited, and at least in a general sense, about Dexter getting more TV time. As we talked about last week, he really hasn't gotten a lot of consistent TV time. So for whatever this turns out to be, I'm at least kind of at least hopeful in that sense. Seems like it's not going to last long. Maybe not. But at least this is a kind of an extension or continuation of the storyline. Gets Dexter on TV. So I can't be too upset about that as a big fan of his.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it's going to be one of those things that we've seen time and time before with other teams, too many to name, but the coexisting portion will probably work out for a while, but then they'll lose a match and one will blame it on the other, and then the girls will have a cat fight and it's going to be back to square one. They're not going to win the tag titles, but maybe this is like a new team to kind of fill that void that MSK left when they left. But, one thing you have to feel bad for is like MSK was two people, and there is still one. We think anyway. I mean, I would assume he's still there.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do there? Like, I mean, it almost feels like a Kushida situation where like you're kind of lost without your partner, so you're there with nothing to do, and you start losing, or you get put into this, with another team. I would, if this was the old days, I'd say 205 Live, but that can't happen now.
Right.
Maybe NXT Level Up would be an option. You can't help but to feel bad when something like that happens and it's not in your power. Like, you didn't do anything wrong, but that's like basically a part of your act. Like, that's, you need the other half to do your job basically. And now it's like back to square one. I assume he's going to have a couple weeks off till they get things figured out, but you just can't help but to kind of feel bad there.
It's really unfortunate across the board here, especially as you just said, if you look at it in that perspective. This really reminds me of the Forgotten Sons back in 2020 with Jackson Riker getting a lot of heat for his tweets. Then Steve Macklin and Wesley Blake, or whatever the names were, /R, I get to mix up sometimes, but they were being pushed on SmackDown. They were facing the New Day. They were getting a very clear push, and then Riker's tweets got a lot of heat, and they were just taken off TV for months. Yeah, and apparently they've done interviews since then. They're pushing for, they're like pitching ideas to whatever they could to try to get back on TV, whether it's just themselves, not even with Riker. Couldn't do it. Eventually, they got a very brief run again, and then they got released. But
I want to clear something up briefly. DJ was commenting about both Jacket Time members had TV time. That's not what I was talking about. I was talking about Kushida long before the Jacket Time teaming,
right.
Back when he first came, and the obviously the time splitters, they were there. It was very brief. It was like 1 week, and then they lost the opening round, like the Dusty Cup, and then that was it. That's what I was referring to with that comparison there.
But very unfortunate for Wesley in that sense. He's very, very talented. I'm sure, if he winds up in another tag team, he'll get a chance to shine, or if they want to kind of retool him in a sense as a singles guy, I'm hopeful. But there is definitely some cause for concern because MSK, he's been MSK from the start in WWE. He was with the Rascals over in Impact and PWG and other places as well. Now, we especially in the NXT WWE sense, we haven't seen him as a singles guy, and there is, especially I feel like in WWE, this kind of sense of like people being tag team wrestlers, and then like once the tag team dissolves out of nowhere, like as you said, John, that kind of leaves you kind of in a lurch and kind of in limbo. So I'm very hopeful, again, cautiously hopeful / trying to be optimistic that it'll be okay, but definitely some cause for concern there. More ideas about how to kind of maybe address this situation. A couple ideas about having Wesley team up with Jacob Anthony. I mean, maybe I can't think of anybody like off the top of my head that I could say, oh yeah, they should team with Wesley right now. I could see Jacob Anthony. At least he's been on TV. I mean, Malik played and other guy, whoever their team is, they're together. So I don't know if you want to make that a trio or anything. I don't know. Very talented guy. I'm hopeful that they'll kind of find a way to use him coming out of this, but just unfortunate all across the board here. DJ points out he did have a singles push and Impact, Wesley, before he signed up WWE. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did great there, but we haven't really gotten to see that anytime recently in terms of like ever since he came to WWE, and that's almost well over a year and a half at this point. So I don't know. Trent says they could do Wesley and Mustafa. Hey, I'd love to see Mustafa on TV, but for whatever reason, seemingly out of pure pettiness at this point, they're not doing anything with Mustafa Ali, which is a damn shame. That'd be a very fun team. Both very talented as well. But more new faces here. We were talking about Pretty Deadly. We're talking about maybe new tag teams here. We got one comment from Eddie here. It's like an NXT UK invasion. Pretty Deadly arrived last week. A-Kid arrived a couple weeks ago. Now Nathan Frazier, formerly known as Ben Carter, is coming to NXT Prime as well. Very brief kind of promo tonight, just saying he's thrived over NXT UK. Now he's got a quote unquote one-way ticket to NXT 2.0 here. They didn't say when it'll be happening. Did not announce him for next week, but it feels like that'll be happening soon. Something happened with A-Kid. They just announced at the time A-Kid coming is next week, so I have to imagine it'll be some point soon. Unfortunately, again, not very familiar with Nathan Frazier specifically. I remember, feels like forever ago, 2020, he did a couple of dates for AEW and Impact. He was wrestling all over the place, and it felt like a big deal when he signed WWE. He was trained by Seth Rollins at the Black and Brave Academy out in Iowa, so definitely some pedigree there. But it could be another good addition to NXT 2.0, but just they're going to kind of have to battle that maybe lack of general familiarity for a lot of the majority of the audience in that sense. But we only talk about just one title match. We've got still two more and more stuff to talk about. The show opened with the North American Championship match between Cameron Grimes and Solo Sikoa. I was very pleasantly surprised by this match. I wasn't expecting very much. I mean, I've been impressed by. I'm a big fan of Cameron Grimes. I've been impressed by Solo Sikoa so far. But it's not like a match. I mean, Cameron just won the title at Stand Deliver. Didn't feel like a match where Solo would win, unless I want to go for a shock twist. Good match. So both guys look great. At one point, Cameron told Solo the bloodline could kiss his ass. That was a pretty fun line there. They are starting to lean into that a little bit more. Solo almost won the match, and then Chick Williams cost him, and Grimes got the win. And then Chick Williams and Carmelo Hayes, former champion, attacked Grimes after the match to set up a rematch. But John, what do you think about the show opening match?
I thought it was actually a pretty good match. The crowd, the weird reactions with them kind of being on Solo's side and against Cameron Grimes is a little weird. They have their moments where the crowd tries to make it about them, which I get. I've been to shows like that where it's been like that, where the crowd wants to, make it about them. WWE is eventually going to push him. It's obvious, but I guess now is maybe not the right time. It was an impressive match early on, but I thought later on it kind of got a little gimmicky, if that makes sense, with the talking back and forth and the taunts and things like that. And then, basically the ending was a typical ending you would see for a TV title match. And then, of course, you get the attack afterwards where we assume there's going to be a rematch at some point. That's where things get interesting because I'm curious to see if they would put the title back on him or leave it on Cameron for now.
Yeah, whether it's a rematch or in this case, even saying maybe a triple threat match, because Solo tried to get involved in this post-match attack, tried to save Cameron, and he wound up getting beat up too. Maybe both. Maybe we'll do a rematch and then spin that into a triple threat match to keep it going, and maybe over the course of a couple of weeks. But it is a good question. I mean, I was not expecting Hayes to lose the title at Stand and Deliver, and then he did. And now it's a situation of like, do you give him the title back? Do you have him maybe kind of climb up the ladder and challenge, in a metaphorical sense, and challenge for the NXT title? I don't know. I could see him getting the title back, though. I guess there's no real reason not to. But again, I guess it just caught my surprise that he lost the title in the first place. Eddie points out that more and more bloodline lines on commentary could kind of signify that Solo might be joining the bloodline, or at least they might kind of be teasing that a little bit. I tweeted about tonight, I was like, there is something interesting about the idea of the bloodline kind of expanding, kind of conquering, and they're already trying to unify the titles on the main roster. And now maybe the only other next step after that would be to invade NXT. Essentially, they've got a ready-made guy, Solo with the connection with the Usos there. There's something interesting about that. Whether that's coming out of this or at some point a little bit down the road, I don't know. But something pretty interesting about that, or at the very least, about the idea of Solo joining the Bloodline, which we've been assuming would be the case since day one. But I like that idea as well, and I like the idea of doing a rematch with whether it's Grimes and Hayes or again the triple threat match here. Either one would be pretty good. Good win for Grimes. Good kind of way to set up whatever happens next. And that leads us to the Women's Championship match. Dakota Kai challenging Mandy Rose, the third of 3 title matches tonight as well. Again, Championship Tuesday, stacked card here. This was a good match. I saw a lot of people were pretty upset with the outcome, if only because Dakota Kai still has not won the NXT Women's Championship as an individual. Obviously, a 2-time Women's Tag Team Champion here, but not getting the singles gold here tonight. At least not tonight. Toxic Attraction basically wound up helping Mandy win the match. I thought it was very good. I've said it time and time again. Mandy Rose definitely continues to impress me. Big star power there. I feel like she's really knocking it out of the park. She's really been just shining bright ever since she came to NXT, or at least since she formed Toxic Attraction. I'm enjoying it. Glad she retained Stand and Deliver. Glad she retained tonight. I like it. And I would definitely agree with Steven saying don't see anybody beating Mandy for a while. He does see Dakota Kai going to the main roster. I think that'd be a good idea. But yeah, it feels like Mandy is going to be the champion for a while. Obviously, I hope that's the case. But definitely lots of comments about Dakota deserving better and deserving a title match. But John, what about the match and the potential outcome here, including the post match angle?
Well, I could tell you this was probably a below average match, I thought, as much as I hate to say it. Now there was some good moments, especially with Dakota and coming off the top ropes and doing the stuff that she did. Mandy Rose has defeated everybody, it feels like. So Wendy Chu, I assume, is next, which to me it's like, really? Is she really next? Like, that can't be one that's going to actually win. And then, of course, you had the champs there at ringside to kind of do the dirty work, of course, as was to be expected. But the post-match angle, I mean, would you agree that it kind of set up like what's next?
Oh yeah, I mean, for clarification, Wendy Chu came down doing this was after Toxic Attraction attacked Raquel Gonzalez during their Dusty Cup match. I think they attacked Wendy again at some point over the past couple of weeks. Wendy comes out with super soakers and sprays Toxic Attraction and then leaves them lying in hopefully water. They didn't announce it as anything else, so let's assume it was water. And pretty clearly, at least teasing that's where they're going. And that's what the viewers here are predicting as well. Eddie's saying it feels like they're going to do that match soon. And Steven's saying it looks like they're going to push Wendy, while DJ says he sees Wendy dethroning Mandy Rose. You can feel it. I don't know about that. But I definitely do feel like they're going in this direction, at least of challenging Mandy Rose. Interesting timing. This was earlier this afternoon. Fightful Select reported that Wendy Chu re-signed with WWE last year, even before she returned back then as Mei Ying with Tian Sha. So she is reportedly, quote unquote, locked down with a new contract. So a little bit of interesting timing there. The bad news coming out, and then tonight getting this tease of her challenging for the title. But I like this comparison from Brian saying that Mandy is getting that Roman Reigns treatment with this reign. We're not there yet. I mean, she won the title at Halloween Havoc, I believe. So, been what, about, I can't do math. It's been 6-ish months, maybe a little longer. So it's definitely been a good reign so far. I don't know how long it's going to go, but I'm enjoying it. I wanted to be a champion for a while. I like it to be a record-setting reign. As I said earlier, I don't know about anyone else who could beat her right here, right now, today. She beat Raquel Gonzalez. She got called up. She just beat Dakota Kai. She beat Cora Jade. And while Eddie's saying Cora will be the next champion, whenever that happens, she's going to be the one maybe to beat Mandy around the summer. DJ wondered as well if we had Wendy return as Mei Ying. I don't know about that. I don't know if they're going to dip and do like a multiple personality thing. They could do like the Demon Valor kind of thing. But that would be such a drastic departure to go from Wendy Chu to back to Mei Ying. I think they might kind of throw people off there. But at least be kind of different and creative. Fernando Fernandez he's on the Wendy Chu train. I don't know. I'm hopeful, maybe in this more kind of featured storyline, we might get more of a chance to see her as a character beyond just occasional napping for laughs around the ring and stuff, to actually have a storyline. I think could be beneficial. I've said it before. I'm not really digging the gimmick so far, but she's been. I mean, clearly they're very high on her. At the very least, there's no doubt about that. But we got Brian saying he does miss the main character. That was abruptly dropped, kind of around the 2.0 transition. But Wendy Chu, they're clearly going all in with, at least for now, at least for the storyline here. We'll have to wait and see how it turns out here. But again, Brian's saying that he likes the idea of Cora beating Mandy in the summer. We'll talk about Roxy a little later on, another newcomer to the women's division here. We got some love for Candice LeRae. Whenever she comes back, maybe she could challenge Mandy down the road. Don't know when that might be. They just had Johnny and Candice had their baby in February, so that mission might be several months away at the very least at this point. I like the idea, though. I like that idea. But speaking of which, we mentioned Cora Jade a minute ago. She came out for a promo. She was talking about how heading into St. Louis, she wanted to be the champion. Now, having come so close, she needs to be a champion. So she's going to keep on chasing her dreams, chasing her goal of being the champion. She referenced all of the legends and the veterans and the people she looked up to when she was growing up, including Natalya. Speak of the devil, they will appear. Natalya comes to the ring. And in the Capitol Wrestling Center, she comes out. The crowd goes bonkers, John. The crowd was chanting "Holy shit" just for Natalya showing up.
The crowd would go bonkers for Akira Tozawa if he showed up.
It was so like she's a very respected veteran. She's done so much, no doubt about that. One of the most respected, renowned veterans on the roster today. There's nothing you can take away from her in that sense. She's had such a remarkable career. I'm not taking that away at all. A holy shit chant just for her walking out and talking to Cora Jade. Don't know about that. Then we get a very emotional promo where she's talking about Cora said that she messaged Natalya at a live show back in 2011 on directly messaged her when she was like 10 years old on Twitter, doing all this stuff. John's giving me big thumbs down.
That was already proven because her Twitter wasn't created until 2018. Now, I guess she could have had a different Twitter, but it took all but 5 minutes for people to get on there and say, you did not message her in 2011 when your Twitter says it wasn't created until October of 2018. So they obviously didn't put any thought into that.
Let's give her the benefit of the doubt and say that it was under a different account when she was a kid. I think that's a fair... at least there's some of this, reasonable margin of error of assuming that's a possibility. But Natalya was saying, I pointed to you at the live event. I remember that night. Okay. She said, I knew I pointed to the right person, even though Natalya is literally at like every house show. I don't know if anybody would have necessarily remembered that, but she, for whatever reason, seemed to remember Cora Jade, or as DJ says, under her real name, Brie Coda. Maybe it was under that name on Twitter. And then she said, I've worked with so many of the greatest women's wrestlers, past, present, and future. I can tell you the future, and the future is bleak. She slaps Cora Jade, slaps on the sharpshooter, leaves her lying. Then Natalya goes backstage, winds up in a match with Tatum Paxley for next week, and says, the boat is here. You're all on notice. So it feels like Natalya is sticking around. I do think that's a good thing in the sense, again, Natalya, a very respected veteran. She's been teaching people outside of, like, away from TV. She's been working with Morgan. I know that, and some others as well. So from a teacher standpoint, I think that's good. From a shakeup in general, so this is kind of, it creates some fresh matchups for NXT. That's good. But I don't know. The whole. It's like she was crying, just put on this whole like act about like crying, and it's just like going a little over the top for my liking a little bit. I like they were trying to tell the story, so I commend them for that. But they're both crying. Cora was like fangirling and freaking out. Like it's a little kind of little hammy for me.
It was. I'll say this: the acting was terrible in the segment, but it was a okay foundation for Cora Jade in the future. She's only 21. She's pretty good on the mic, but it's still being forced a little bit. Natalya is a good superstar to help solidify that future and put talent over, and it gives her something to do. I assume she's going to spend the next couple months in NXT helping people, getting them over, and that can only be good. But I don't know why Natalya was doing the old crocodile tears throughout the segment. Like, she had no reason to cry. So
yeah, that's the thing. If she, like, I don't necessarily know exactly what made it make more sense, but she's like started getting pretty emotional very quickly. At first, it seemed she was emotional just because the crowd was so happy to see her, and that seemed genuine. And then as she was talking, she was really amping it up. I'm like, all right, this is a little much for me. Eddie points out Natalya is the first woman wrestler from the main roster to come to NXT 2.0. That sounds right. I mean, back in the Black and Gold era, you have like Sasha Banks come down, Daly come down a couple times. That was like summer of 2020. But no, I don't think we've seen this so far in the 2.0 era. And you wonder who else could come down. He likes the idea of it being Shayna Baszler or Nikki ASH. Could be. Hey, Shayna Baszler, definitely one of those people that's not getting used very well on the main roster still, which pains me to say. I think that'd be great. She had a great run as the NXT Women's Champion. Nikki ASH, same thing. She had a great run she had a good run as Raw Women's Champion, but last summer, now she's joining the 24/7 title division. Not a great look. But another idea of being not just like Liv Morgan would look cool as a champion. I mean, there'd be a kind of cool story with her and Mandy Rose potentially, but I don't know if they're going to be doing too much of this kind of crossover in that sense. And then we'll see how this goes with Natalya, but definitely worth pointing out that Natalya is the longest active women's wrestler in WWE right now. She could be there to put over the women in the women's division and to give them advice and kind of teach them. Again, I think that's her biggest value at this point in working with NXT. So it makes sense from a TV standpoint, from a away from TV standpoint. I like it. I think it's beneficial across the board here. DJ points out that yes, Charlotte as well here. She was down on NXT, but it was not NXT 2.0. That was when she won the title. 2020 at this point. That was, again, feels like forever ago. But yeah, she was down there as well. But no, Brian, I remember Natalya was one of I remember I got into wrestling right around 2007, 2008. And I remember she was one of the first people that I watched on SmackDown, like when she was with Tyson Kidd and D.A. Smith way back when. So yeah, I've been watching her for over a decade at this point. So it speaks to her longevity. So still going strong here. And now she's in NXT 2.0. So, well, Chris goes, I think will be beneficial. Something I did not think was beneficial was the way they used Kushida tonight. So they announced last week Kushida would face Von Wagner. We didn't even get that match. Von Wagner attacked Jacket Time backstage, and then Robert Stone and Von Wagner came to the ring, said Jacket Time has run out of time, and we're not going to see them again. And for a split second, I was like, you know what? That'd be okay. Just give me Kushida, give me Kimajiro. They're both great, but the team's not doing it for me. Repackage them, do whatever you want. Like, just hit the reset. It's fine. Jiro comes out. He's mad. He attacks Wagner. He puts up a fight. Wagner wins. And then Wagner just chucks Jiro into the crowd after the match. That was actually a pretty cool spot. But we've said this, I feel, John, literally since we started this show. Poor Kushida. Kushida just not getting used well in NXT still. Other than his very brief run as the Cruiserweight champion, just not a good run for him here by and large. And it'll continue tonight. It's a shame. It's a shame.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I said earlier, it definitely is.
It feels like we might get a match with Kushida here. With Von Wagner, it feels like, unfortunately, in some sense, a continuation that they're probably going to do to kind of give Wagner another win over, I mean, they could say a former champion with Kushida, a renowned wrestler in Kushida. So they're very clearly trying to establish Von Wagner. So it feels like that's where we're going. And unfortunately, don't think that's for the best for Kushida, but that's where we are. Yet again, Von Wagner was eyeing up a very noteworthy woman in the crowd. She's been featured like backstage, kind of in the peripheral vision of the WrestleZone and Von Wagner duo here. I don't even know if they've named her. I definitely don't remember, but they've very clearly been teasing like this is like a potential recruit for the WrestleZone brand, maybe like love interest even. I don't really know, but there is very clearly some association here. Feels like there might only be a matter of time before she becomes kind of a more regular member of at least of the stable, if not the show itself. But honestly, I don't remember if they've named her yet, and if they have, honestly can't even say I remember. But speaking of which, talking about the women's division here, we had what they hyped up for briefly an interview with Nikita Lyons, pan backstage. Nikita Lyons briefly cutting a promo from off camera. Last Legend just comes in and she just Sparta kicks Nikita Lyons out of her chair. And the way they filmed this was very, very funny. And Nikita just kind of like flew backwards out of her chair. The camera got it was almost like found footage. The camera got wobbly. And then Lashley kind of walked away and shot from like the ground up where she's like towering over the camera. So that feud's continuing. Nikita beat Lash, I think it was last week. So good to have these like non-title storylines going on. But if anything, like this gif of the kick was just making the rounds on Twitter tonight. It was just really an interesting way that it was shot, just like very forceful kick. So at least people kind of at least remember that. So I think that there's something said for that. Any thoughts on this brief segment, John, other than the memorable kick?
Yeah, that was pretty much the only thing that was memorable about it. It was kind of short, and they had that weird camera cut where it cut to the audience, then back to the segment, then back to the arena for Core's entrance. It wasn't anything notable, really.
Yeah, but it was another way for Nikita to get on TV.
Yeah, okay, and let's briefly pause because Eddie commented and said Nikita Lyons is over with the crowd and social media. Tell me why. Why is she? Tell me why.
You know what Wade Barrett said in commentary
Tell me why.
When the first pan backstage, they showed Nikita Lyons, she was sitting next to the interviewer. Wade Barrett, I kid you not, said the blood's gonna be pumping when the interview starts. And I was like, pray tell, Wade, where's the blood gonna be pumping? And again, if you've seen the internet, the very horny internet, you would understand that, because again, the first night Nikita was on NXT, the screen grab, the image I think WWE themselves took of her pinfall, the viral pin, Eddie himself, the viral pin. Yes, that's why she's very over with social media, and they're rolling with it. They're trying to make her a star, kind of coming out of that. Will it work? I don't know, but at the very least, again, they are trying to make the most of it and have her be a featured star. I think tonight she says she wants to make waves in the women's division, so she's already making waves. She's already again been on TV. She's been featured in a feud here. So far, if not so good, Stevens is over pushing her. I mean, perhaps, but they're trying to make something of it, and I can't fault them for that. But we'll see how it goes. It does feel like we're gonna get a rematch here. Nanda put something Melina used to do that thing back in the day. I don't know. Maybe so. I guess maybe the internet is like more not widespread. Like it's things go viral more now. Like everyone and their brothers on Twitter. So like someone does a pin like that, and like it just it gets really over, and people go crazy about it. So it feels like that's what happened here. Whereas Melina maybe I feel like she was right at the outset or the early onset of the internet era there. So not quite the same thing there, but. Other than that, John, the only thing we haven't really talked about is NXT champion Braun Breaker. NXT champion Braun Breaker had a promo tonight talking about Joe Gacy abducting his father last week. Rick Steiner, that was the Shokuzen angle last week. And Braun was pissed off, and he said, he wanted to come out to the ring. No one messed with his family, as if he was Dominic Toretto. Gacy not there in attendance. He was on a video screen, and he happened to take Rick Steiner's newly gained Hall of Fame ring And he said this symbolizes all your father's sacrifices, all of the baseball practice he missed. Pretty good promo talking about how all Rick not be being there. So it was fine. And then Gacy put the ring in this like fire and seemingly destroyed it, even though it's metal. Okay. And later in the show, twice in the show, we pan backstage. Vaughn's pissed off. He's not even saying anything. He storms away to his very nice car. And then in another follow-up, we get Gacy takes the ring out of the fire and puts it on his finger, supposedly right when it's out of the fire. It's kind of interesting. I saw some people not really happy about this because Gacy hasn't really been built up as a real, like, genuine competitor here. But he is kind of getting this storyline out of mind games, really. But I don't know. I'm enjoying the character, at least. I'm enjoying this storyline. I like they're incorporating Braun's family. I'm not as down as other people seem to be. But John, what did you think about all of this?
Well, if anything, it showed that NXT has the ability to produce interesting and intriguing segments outside of the arena and outside of kind of the norms that they've been doing. I'm not necessarily convinced at all of this Braun Breaker anger towards, I would assume, Joe Gacy, no Harlan tonight. And then he yelled at the camera, Breaker yelling at the cameraman for getting in his way on the way out. Like, that was kind of weird, too. And then there was another follow-up promo later with Gacy saying, the world is run by loudest voices and he knows how to get into Breaker's head, which is true. I'm still not convinced that he's really a challenger. Like, he hasn't really done anything at all except walk around with Harlan. Harlan should be the challenger of anybody, I think.
Yeah, I mean Harlan has been more physically dominant, but again, I like the idea of Gacy manipulating, playing mind games a little bit. You don't always need to be a dominant challenger. You just kind of get in the champion's head, and you kind of create that that personal motivation, and you kind of go from there. Gacy's I remember he faced Tommaso Ciampa one of his first nights on NXT. I think that was probably back in September or so, and I remember being able to think it was a pretty good match. I feel like when he has been in the ring, I've been fairly impressed. Or it's not like it's been bad. He's a very if not accomplished, experienced wrestler. So I feel like this might be a chance to really establish him in that sense. So I like that potential. Steven's saying he's not taking the feud though. He's not taking the direction, not liking where it's going, at least at this point. Maybe it's not to salvage it. I was intrigued at least by Gacy's promo. He said, as you mentioned, John, that Braun doesn't have what it takes to like carry the brand on his back. He's too emotional. He's too kind of easy to manipulate, and now he's exploiting that. So I like kind of the motive there at least. So I'm intrigued at the very least. I'm interested to see where it goes. Do I think Gacy's going to win? No. Do I have to give me any reason to think it's going to win? Not really. But I think it's interesting. And I agree with Braun here. I said this from, if not the start, at least kind of pretty quickly after his debut. I definitely do see some similarities between Gacy and Bray Wyatt with like the sheer creepiness and like this idea of manipulating people. So definitely a good comparison to be had, at least in terms of character work, and hopefully it works out for him. I'm liking the gimmick. I think he plays it very well. I think we've come a long way from where he was. If you remember when he first came to NXT 2.0, he was all about like, what even was it? Like people are too sensitive and being triggered and all these things. He's kind of like trying to tweak that a little bit. Now it's more just like, more mental and psychological kind of a little bit. So there's been a progression. I think it's been beneficial in that sense. So again, do I think Ace is going to beat Breaker? No. Do I think this could help him really get even more established in NXT? Yes, I think that's a good thing. But speaking of the NXT title, we got Eddie saying he sees Carmelo Hayes and potentially Grayson Waller as people that beat Braun Breaker. And I think that's a pretty good prediction. John, of the two of those, do you think anyone has a chance of beating Breaker at this point? Or if not, who?
I think it's too early to say. I don't think it's really clear cut yet. Definitely not going to be Carmelo Hayes. I think he would probably move up before anything else. And I'm inclined to say it's also not going to be Joe Gacy, of course, as well. I mean, I could see a case for Solo Sikoa. That would probably be somebody that I would name. Um, like I said, we'll just see how they continue to kind of evolve the superstars and what direction they take the show in. It's been gaining momentum. I mean, the ratings have steadied out above, 625,000 for the past couple weeks. It was going down, then it was kind of flat, and now it's went back up and it's flat again. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, and we've talked about that for the past couple of weeks from a sheer quality standpoint. I mean, we do the show obviously on Tuesday nights, and then we see the ratings usually on Wednesdays. So usually it feels like the past couple of weeks in a row, we've been saying, "Hey, show's getting a little better." I feel like I'm enjoying a little more. I feel like they're kind of finding the footing a little bit more. And then as the next day on Wednesday, we have seen some improvement in the ratings as well. So if not cause and effect, at least kind of a little bit of a chain, if not chain reaction, you know what I mean? There's some kind of correlation there, at least. It feels like there's something to be said for this momentum paying off from quality and the ratings as well. So I'm enjoying it. But for Eddie's question here, we talked about it for a couple of weeks briefly. I thought it would be potentially Gunther. He's up on SmackDown now. I think Waller and Hayes are good bets at this point, but as you said, John, I feel like Hayes might be going to the main roster before that could potentially happen. But same thing at Breaker. Maybe Breaker will get called up. Maybe Hayes is the guy that beats him, and then he'll get a kind of a run as the main champion there. Although he says the North American champion is the A champion, but I digress.
Yeah.
I see him as a realistic option. Grayson Waller, he's been really prominently featured. I could see him as well. I think that's a good option. Maybe a little bit under, maybe around summertime. But Nando, I'm here with you, Nando, saying NXT 2.0 better than the black and gold version. No. He thinks it's mid. I agree. But I don't know about that though. He compares it to MLW. MLW has been out some good stuff. They have good roster.
Oh God, no. Oh God, no.
What are you talking about, John? What's
No.
MLW, not AEW.
Still,
What?
NXT 2.0 is much better than that, I would say. I would compare it closer to the black and gold than I would to MLW as far as on the totem pole. It's definitely not better than the black and gold, but I wouldn't say it's like absolutely terrible.
No. And again, there was a time where I was very, very down on it, and I would joke about like I pretty much dreaded it, honestly. And now I'm at least enjoying the balance is much more. I'm enjoying a good portion of it, and then you still have your Von Wagners and stuff like that. But they are definitely making progress. I commend them for that. It's good. We can watch NXT and enjoy it more than we could, and then maybe there's a kind of rough period when they were transitioning to 2.0 and all that stuff. But I still do miss the black and gold version, and to some extent I always will. But we're enjoying 2.0 more, so that is good. I'm not gonna. I do want to say MLW. They're putting on a good product. All right, if you want to check it out, Karrion Kross is there. He recently popped up there. They had a very talented roster. I'm enjoying it. I'm a big fan of a lot of the guys there.
Steven Chambers.
All right, because we try to be interactive, I will put the comment there. Steven says it's minor league wrestling. No, it's major league wrestling, and it's good product. I definitely recommend it. John, the thing about wrestling now, we can enjoy any number of products, all right? Any number of flavors, any number of styles, and
But
MLW.
I don't want to be the Debbie Downer, but doesn't that give you the right to do the opposite too then?
Well, yeah, but
okay, just asking.
All right. I will yet again bring out what my mom said to me when I was 5 years old. Everyone has their own cup of tea. No, what? No, everyone has their own cup of tea. So what if you don't like one thing? That's totally fine. Someone else will. So
let me restart. You're glass half full, not glass half empty.
I try to be. I try to be. In a very general sense, I try to be. But especially with wrestling here, wrestling these days especially, it's a great time to be a fan. Now we're going a little more general. It's a great time to be a fan. Any number of companies are going to offer you any number of different things. AEW, WWE, NXT is a different kind of thing in its own little world over here. Impact, GCW, whatever it might be, any number of companies. New Japan, so much good stuff's out there. So you're like, we can enjoy it, or if you don't enjoy it, that's fine too. So I will agree. Like I can't knock you for not liking it. Like you're perfectly entitled to not like it as well. It's fine. Speaking of notable names on NXT, as we have been, DJ's asked a couple times here asking about Bayley coming back. Supposedly, she's been around. She was at WrestleMania. She's been teasing her return. I have to think it's going to be soon. I don't think she'll be coming back to NXT though. I mean, Natalia's one thing. They're both respected veterans. Natalia's at that stage in her career though, where she's definitely like that player coach kind of thing. Bayley is definitely still someone that can be featured in the main event and can be a champion again. Like there's still a lot that can do with Bayley, and there's a lot that can do with Natalia. But I'm just saying, like, kind of different stages of the careers in that sense. So I don't necessarily think, other than maybe like a very brief crossover, maybe. But like even then, I think she'll definitely be more featured on with the main roster. Rude and Ziggler, same thing. I thought of them when Natalia came out. Like they're definitely in that veteran player coach kind of style there. Ziggler himself said it when he won the title. He was like, I didn't plan on being a champion. I came down to scout the talent and kind of work with them, show them how it's done in a main roster sense, and then won the title and things unfolded from there. But and not to say that that's what Natalia is doing, but like there's. I thought of them, and I don't view them the same way as a Bayley. Big fan of both guys. Again, Bayley kind of in a different stage in that sense. So based on how they've been used, not based on talent or anything, just based on the way they've been used and the way what we've seen so far. So with all that said, John, well said. Champions of Tuesday, 3 title matches, new title champions, new or continuations of feuds, new people coming in, new tag teams, lots of stuff that we've talked about tonight. What do you think about NXT All Things Considered tonight?
6.5.
Steven agrees. Why not higher or
What about
lower?
you? Well, I thought that, of course, they called it Title Tuesday, but it was kind of jumbled, and they're continuing to contradict themselves in some aspects, but then in other aspects, they're. I mean, they had a curveball thrown on this week, obviously with the tag, so they're trying to make do with what they have, I guess.
Yeah, and we talked about it. I think it was either last night or on Friday where Robert and I talked about it. Like NXT, it feels like is often hit with these curveballs or obstacles. They're like the Samoa Joe thing back in September. I think that was September. Any number of things over the past year plus. I mean, any number of things. Tommaso Ciampa getting surgery way back when he was the champion. It feels like this happens a good amount, or not a good amount, too much in a lot of ways. And I feel like they always try to do their best to roll with it. Again, did I agree with Pretty Deadly winning? Not necessarily, but it's a bit of kind of, if not a lose-lose, just an unideal situation to begin with. So can't fault them for that. I think they did the best they could. Looking forward to seeing how it unfolds. But for the ratings here, we got Laura with a 9.6. She enjoyed the show. DJ with a 7.75. Brian with a 6.9. He enjoyed the gauntlet, so he thought it was fun. We got Nando 2.0 gets 4 ducks and 2 geese. I don't know what the numerical equivalent of that is, but it sounds like almost 5. Let's go almost 5 from Nando there. But what I do for my rating, I'll go for a solid 6.5 as well. I think that's pretty fair. Enjoyed the gauntlet match. That was a very good match. Again, didn't necessarily agree with the ending, so that took me a little bit out of it. I thought North American title match was good. Women's title match was good. Some things otherwise didn't enjoy so much. But not a bad show. But speaking of Samoa Joe here, yes, Steven, tomorrow night on Dynamite, we're going to get Minoru Suzuki versus Samoa Joe. That's going to be really cool, man. I'm looking forward to that. John, I can't lie. Right? I can't lie. That's a really cool match, man. So I'm looking forward to that.
Let's see what they deliver next week. I'm more interested in next week.
Because you're going to be there next week.
Yeah.
That's right. So can't blame me for that. I'm confident saying it's going to be a good show no matter what, because all it always is. I'm biased, but I like it. We got Nando saying Samoa Joe had a good debut in AEW last week. That was when he faced Max Caster. So far, Samoa Joe getting to shine in NXT. Good to see him back in the ring. Obviously, we're the NXT show, but he was NXT champion, and he had to vacate the title right after he won, unfortunately. So got to see him back. But not right after, but very shortly after he won the title back in September. So got to see him back in the wrestling ring, doing what he does best, enjoying it. And over here on the NXT show, here we are. Onward, always we go. With that being said, back to business here. NXT next week. John, you and I will be here talking about NXT. You're going to be at Raw again to see the double weddings on Monday, as we talked about last night. So I'll be here with post show on Monday night as well. Robert and I should be here on Friday with SmackDown post show. Otherwise, two down dudes in Rampage to go for all things AEW. So make sure to check that out as well to hear about that match with Samoa Joe and Minoru Suzuki and so much more. Other than that, So many interviews constantly coming at you. Bill Pritchard recently interviewed Speedball Mike Bailey, Dutch Mantel, Tasha Steeles. I interviewed Chris Dickinson, who recently signed off New Japan Pro Wrestling. Congratulations to him. Lots of great stuff constantly coming at you guys. All of our feeds, SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, all the good stuff. You know where to find us. So please leave a like and subscribe. We appreciate you so much. Thank you all so much for listening. John, with that being said, we are come here together to do one thing above all others. You can tell me what that is. No matter what brand of wrestling you choose to consume, what do we do here?
Enjoy wrestling.
Indeed. Thanks for listening, everybody.